Welcome, everyone. Dr. Rick with another Relate Well Live. That's right. Back in the saddle. You are now looking at a 60-year-old man. I turned 60 October 3rd of this year, which is 3 days ago, this past Sunday. And my bride gave me the best present I think I've ever had. She took me to Las Vegas so I could see Lionel Richie live. One of the three concerts that I've always wanted to see, and I got to go see him, and it was phenomenal, just phenomenal. So I have now entered into a new decade, and still feel good. One day the next, no real big change, right? But anyways, I've now hit my 60s, so I've been around the earth now. I've been on this earth for 60 years and 3 days. Okay, then. Excuse me. Got some water over here. I've had a dry throat today, so if I drink some water, please forgive me. All right, and we're going to get through this thing. Manipulation in marriage. I know none of you. Excuse me. I know that none of you actually manipulate in your marriage, but I do know we know people who do, don't we? We know people who do. I was manipulative in the early years of our marriage. Now, if you've hung with me enough, then you've heard me talk a lot about my past and that I was emotionally a child in the first 9, 10 years of our marriage. And I dealt with things in childish ways. I was manipulative. And I was manipulative in a passive aggressive way. But it's the best I had based on how I was raised. I wasn't raised by healthy, mature adults. I was raised by immature adults. And they couldn't raise us children to be mature adults because you can't raise somebody to be something that you're not. And so at the emotional level, I dealt with conflict in very immature ways. And so, and because I was always afraid of being shocked with a cow prod and I was always being put down verbally, I basically became passively aggressive. And in those early years of marriage, if I wanted something, I wouldn't get my needs met my way because, it's all about me, right? Then I would become manipulative to Luella. And that was how I would deal with things that I was angry about or hurt about. It was my way of gaining some semblance of control. Manipulation is really about control. It's really about controlling another person. But let's talk about what is manipulation first. All right, let's kind of start there and we'll just kind of move through our excuse me. We're going to start there, and then we're going to move through the manipulation. Take a look at what it is. How do you recognize it? What's the purpose of it? And what do you need to do to stop being a manipulator, as well as how to deal with someone who is being manipulative? All right. So manipulation is, in essence, it's the ability to act in certain ways whereby, I'm sorry, folks, I've got a scratchy throat. Can you tell? We're going to try that one again. All right. Manipulation is the ability, the wherewithal, the behavior whereby you are looking to exercise harmful influence over another person for your gain. You see, manipulators attack people at the emotional and mental level. All right, it's to get what you want, to get your needs met. It's a form of control. It's really trying to control another person for your own gain. It's taking from someone, and it doesn't matter that you harm them emotionally or mentally. What matters is that you get what you want. You see, and the one who is doing the manipulating is called the manipulator. All right. And the manipulator is seeking to imbalance power. I'm better than you. I'm smarter than you. I know more than you. You're less than me. All right. And they want to take advantage of another person. You want to take advantage of your spouse in order to get power, control, to get your needs met, to get benefits that you want or privileges. that you want at the expense of your spouse. And of course, we can say that this applies to any relationship, right? But we're making the application here to marriage. Manipulation can happen in a marriage relationship, a friendship relationship, a work relationship, and with your children. And I've learned that children are pretty good at manipulating to get what they want, you see, because that's what children do in order to get what they want. That's why I was manipulated. When Luella didn't meet my needs for affection or give me attention like I wanted, I'd cop an attitude and I'd sulk. I'd punish her to make her feel guilty. By the way, I'm not proud of what I'm saying, but I am telling you the truth. It's what I did. You see, manipulators have a lot of common tricks that they use to make you feel guilty, to make you feel that you're irrational, to do whatever it is to make you do what they want at your expense. So, what are some of the things that manipulators, what are some of the tricks they have in their bag? One is they'll guilt you, they'll make you feel guilty about whatever. Because if you start to feel guilty, then you start to feel defensive, right? And you don't want to feel guilty. You don't want to feel bad. You don't want to feel like you're the bad guy because they're making you feel like you're the bad guy. So in order to not feel like you're the bad guy, they're manipulating you, by the way, you do what they want so you can feel better about you, but you don't know. You're being manipulated to feel guilty. You see? Another is they just complain. Another technique in their bag of tricks is complaining, whining, complain. You don't do this. You don't love me. You never do what I want. And eventually that complaining, it makes you feel guilty. And the complaining makes you feel bad about yourself. The complaining makes you hurt for them. And out of that, oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, I'm so sorry I did that. You then give them what they want because the complaining is used to either make you feel guilty or make you feel sad for them. So you do what they want. Another trick in their bags, a bag of tricks, is comparing. Manipulators will compare you to other people. They'll compare this to that. They'll compare what this person does versus what you do. Well, my mom always did this, but you don't care. My, God says to do it this way, and God does it this way, but you don't. They'll throw religion out there for you too. It's called, it's the manipulation of the church, right? Another one is, God told me you're supposed to do this. God didn't tell them. They're just making that up because I find it funny that when God tells that person, why didn't he tell you, right? And so another is comparing. Another trick they have in their bag of tricks to manipulate you is lying. Just flat out lying about whatever they said or did. Another is not lying, but it's denying. I didn't do that. No, I did not do that. No, that's what you think, but I didn't do that. No, you're wrong. And it's to manipulate you. I never said that. And because I never said that, you're just doing this. It's all manipulation. Another trick in their bag of tricks is the manipulator will act like they're ignorant. They'll act like they're innocent. Well, I didn't know. Please forgive me. I just didn't realize I was doing it that way. And so you start to feel bad because they didn't know, they're ignorant, and then you give in to what they want. Another trick in the bag of tricks for manipulators to manipulate you is blame. They'll blame you. Well, you know what? I wouldn't have done that or said that had you not done this. No, you did this first. And because of this, I was forced to do that. But all I was wanting was that. But no, it's all mental and emotional. They're playing with your mental and emotional brain. And another one is just play mind games with you. And I won't spend a lot of time on that because there's so many different forms of mind games. You can kind of research that if you like, but they play mind games with you. And so you see, manipulation, there's a lot of things that they do in order to get you to do what they want. What's the purpose? Power and control over you, so you will do what they want. The problem is long term, you're going to get angry. You're going to feel controlled. You're going to feel manipulated. You see, and and people manipulate. They have common traits, all right, that you can look for. And here's some of the common traits that research shows that are common to manipulators. Number one of the common traits of manipulators are they know your weaknesses and they know how to exploit them. They know your weaknesses and they know how to exploit your weaknesses. Maybe they know that you feel guilty because of this, or maybe they know that you were hurt because of that, or maybe they know that you did something in the past and there's a lot of guilt and shame around it. So they use that against you. It's why a lot of time manipulators want to get to know you really well. It's not because they care about you, is they get to know you and get you to open up, so they learn things about you so they can use those things against you, particularly your weaknesses. You see, if you struggle with an addiction, if you struggle with anything, they're going to find those weaknesses and use those against you. They also use your insecurities against you. If they know that you believe you're not good enough, if they know that you believe you have no value, if they know that you believe you have no worth, if you believe that you're not good enough unless you're doing something for somebody else. Many years ago, excuse me, many years ago, I taught, I think it was 1992, I taught a breakout session at the American Counseling Association's annual conference in Atlanta. And I taught a class or a workshop on religious addiction. Religious addiction. The class went really very well, as a matter of fact. And there was a gentleman in the back, a therapist in the back, who was a former Baptist minister. And he shared this. I never forgot this. He shared this. He said, when I was pastoring, it was very difficult to get people to volunteer to do things. And I was talking with their Baptist Association director, who kind of it's like a pastor of pastors in a region. And he said, I was talking to him about, and that pastor told me, he said, what you need to do to get volunteers, find the people in the church who have the greatest insecurities, the greatest need to be loved because they don't really love themselves. Get them to do it because they'll do it because they want to be loved and valued. And this man said, I did that and it worked. He said, but later on, I realized I was manipulating people and using their weaknesses to my benefit. You see, that's a form of manipulation, using people's insecurities against them to get what you want done. Another trait you can look for are manipulators convince you to give up something important to you. You see, and as you give up that thing that's important to you, the purpose is to make you more dependent on them. So you give up your car to them. You give up your bank account to them. You give up your PIN number, whatever it is, you give them up. But once you give it up, they have control over it. And once they have control of it, you become dependent on them. It's very unhealthy. I can think of many cases where I've seen that done in marriage. And another trait you'll find manipulators that if they're successful in their manipulation of you, they will continue to do so that the longer it takes place, the longer it happens, the longer they can manipulate you, you're going to find it more and more difficult to get out of the relationship with them. Why? Because what they're really doing is stripping you of your value and worth. They're convincing you that you're nothing without them. They're convincing you that you're a weak person and you need their strength to be a better person and to be whole. You see, you gave up your sense of value. You gave up your value and worth to the manipulator who manipulated it right out of you. Now, we can, simply say that people who are being manipulated have pretty poor boundaries. You got it? And people who are manipulators don't respect boundaries. So just as much as they don't respect other people's boundaries, those who are being manipulated don't respect their own boundaries, you see, which is why they're being manipulated. And so the manipulator will try and bring you out of your comfort zone, out of wherever you are, and bring them into their world under their terms, um, under their kind of pretense of what they want you to be and what they want. Why? All to take advantage of you, to take your heart, to take your mind, to take your money, whatever it is they do. You see, it's all manipulation. And the reality is, manipulators will lie to you. They'll make excuses. They'll blame you for what they're doing. They'll share facts about you to other people to make you feel bad, to make you feel like you're worthless. They'll bring in other people. They can bring in other people. They see she has this problem. Look here, Bob. Look here, Dave. Look here, Mom. And now they build alliances with other people against you to further prove that you are a certain way. And they exaggerate and they generalize. They'll say things, you've never loved me. You've never cared about me. I've never been good enough for you. And then you start to feel guilty and bad. And not because you're feeling guilty and bad, because they generalize these statements and terms. And out of those generalizations, you start to feel guilty, bad about yourself. These generalizations can exploit your weaknesses and your insecurities. Why? To get what they want from you. Another tactic that they do is they use cruel humor. This humor, the reason it's cruel, it's so they can poke at your weaknesses. It's to poke at your weaknesses. You see, and it's to make you look bad. It's just psychologically demean you so they can feel better and more powerful and have it more altogether, ultimately, so they can feel superior to you. And that's what cruel humor is about. Sarcasm is a form of dirty fighting. Sarcasm isn't healthy. It's actually unhealthy. It can be used as manipulation, but the reality is cruel humor and sarcasm isn't really funny, at least not to the receiver. And therein lies the problem, because again, remember, the manipulator isn't thinking about your well-being. The manipulator isn't really caring about what's going on inside of you. They're only focused on themselves. That's it. Another tactic that manipulators use is gaslighting. Gaslighting. This is to confuse you and make you question your own reality. It's to make you think that you're the crazy one. It's to make you think that what you see and what you thought you saw take place didn't really happen, that there's something wrong. How could you think that? What would you make that for? No one ever said that or did that. What's wrong with you? It's to make you never, it's to create in you the inability to think for yourself, to distrust your thoughts, and no longer believe that what you saw is true, to no longer believe that what you feel is true, to no longer believe that what you saw or experienced is the way it is. They want you to think it's their way. Gaslighting. Gaslighting is very, very dysfunctional, but it's a great tool for manipulators. Another tool that they use is passive aggressive, being passively aggressive. Guilty. I already told you earlier, beginning of this Relate Well Live Talk, when I got married 37 years ago, I was emotionally a child, and I dealt with things in childish ways. And one of the things that I did was I was passively aggressive. I would manipulate through silence, through sulking, to make Lula feel guilty so she'd give me what I want. You see, it also can be like backhanded compliments. It's all anything to do to release anger that you have, to hurt someone, to make them feel bad like you are feeling bad in a very, very dysfunctional way. Another thing that manipulators do is they hide their manipulation behind humor and just quote good fun. Behind humor and good fun, and in this case, they'll judge, ridicule, or dismiss you. Oh, I wasn't really meaning that, I was just saying that you're this way. You know, when someone's judging you, ridiculing, or dismissing you in a funny way, it ain't fun. And it ain't funny. Did you get that? It ain't fun. And it ain't funny. Why? They want you to feel that something's wrong and that no matter what you do, you will always be inadequate to them. Remember, the whole purpose of manipulating your spouse is to make you superior to them, that you are better than them. They're below you. All right? And so, and remember, when they judge, they're judging issues in your life that you may know about, or actually that aren't really problems, but they convince you that they're problems. You see, because manipulation, a lot of times, it's hard to identify it in the moment that you're being manipulated, unless you begin to think about what's happening in the moment. This is why self-awareness is so important in emotional health. It's the first of the 4 core competencies of emotional intelligence. And by the way, just so you know, the 4 core competencies are self-awareness, which leads to self-control, which then leads you to have the ability to be socially aware. You can read the emotions in group, which leads to the highest of the traits of emotional intelligence, which is relationship management, that you're able to manage and regulate the emotions in a group just by yourself, but by who you are, by how you conduct yourself, the highest level of emotional intelligence. And so you see, there are ways that you can deal with these people. There are ways you can deal with these people, but you're gonna have to be your own person to do that. You see, if you have any level of insecurity, if you have thoughts that I'm not good enough, or that I'm unlovable, that I don't matter, that I have no value, that I have no worth, I have no purpose. If you live by these negative, I call them stories, if you live by these negative stories, and these stories are pervasive in your life, you're easier to be manipulated. Do you get it? You're easier to be manipulated. Why? Because they're going to exploit your weaknesses. Because they're not thinking about how you believe about yourself. They're going to manipulate those weaknesses and insecurities in you in order to take from you what they want. A lot of men will try and manipulate their wife for sex. A lot of women will try and manipulate their husbands to get them to notice them or do something around the house. And when both parties are manipulating each other, let's be honest, you're not going to build what I call an us. You're harming each other. You're harming the relationship. What I call us. You're harming us at the expense of getting what you want for yourself. One of the core principles we talk about in Relate Well and fighting so that your marriage is kind of fight free. And what I mean by fight free is, culture knows you can't have a fight free marriage. I mean, having conflict, culture says is a fight. So I like to kind of give you clarity around what I mean. Yes, all relationships are going to have conflict. That's called being human. It's called being human. All relationships will have conflict. What matters is how you handle the conflict. Some people fight. And by the way, your fighting may not be a hot war. It could also be a cold war. You see. But if you are a person who believes you have value, that believes you're worthy, that believes you're lovable, that believes you're good enough, it's much more difficult to manipulate those people. Why? They are confident and secure in who they are. And to become that kind of a person, you had to move to humility at some point, because healthy, mature adults are very humble people. And to live a life of humility is a very powerful way to live life. It's a very powerful way to live life. You see, and so when you have a strong, healthy, mature sense of self, you're able to set healthy, strong boundaries with those people. You see, you can set boundaries with them. And so some of the ways you can set those boundaries are these. You learn to communicate in a very clear, direct, and specific way. One of the things we say that we say in our work and Relate Well, if you want to have a fight-free marriage, you want to do well in relationships, move from the lower order animal brain to the higher order brain, which we teach in our Relate Well communication skills. Move to the higher order brain. But when it comes to conflict, less is best. You see, the lower order animal brain, it likes to talk and talk and talk and talk and talk because it's just emotional energy with no rational controls from the higher order neocortex. And so you keep talking, but you end up saying things you probably shouldn't say or would have said. You see, we say in our world, when it comes to conflict, less is best. Be clear, be clear, be direct, and speak in specific ways. Less is best. Or I say this way, be more businesslike when you're dealing with conflict. And the Relate Well skills that we teach on how to regulate emotional energy so you can communicate in healthy, mature ways and not be manipulative. It's a skill, one of the skills we call express skill. It's our big kahuna skill. It forces you to less is best so your partner can hear clearly what's going on inside of you. Now, also, when you are a healthy, mature person, you're able to understand when the manipulation is unhealthy and not normal and needs to be addressed. All right, so what do you mean? Are you suggesting some manipulation is positive? It depends on your perspective, right? Depends on your perspective. Let's say a person wants to kill themselves and you're trying to get them not to, and so you manipulate what's being said in order to get them to not kill themselves. Are we going to say in that point manipulation is not bad? No, I would think if I can manipulate someone's brain away from killing themselves, that's not a bad thing. But if I manipulate you to get you to give me money or affection or time or to make you feel guilty or manipulate you to make the bed, manipulate you, fill in the blank, and that's all about me. That's all about me. And so you have to set healthy boundaries with people who are manipulators. Why? Because people who are manipulators don't respect boundaries. Let your yes be yes or your no be no. Don't say no when you want to say yes, and don't say yes when you want to say no. Say what you mean. Be specific, be clear, and let them know you're not going to treat me this way. You're not going to talk to me that way. You see, those kinds of things. I remember years ago, it was one of those period of time where Luell and I were at our worst in our marriage. And I grew through that. I mean, I became a better man as I grew through that. But there was a period of time where we were really at our worst. And I had worked at a church at the time. It was the worst job I ever had as an employee. It was a very abusive work environment. But that place that I worked, that was an abusive work environment was a sanctuary for my wife as a little girl from an alcoholic crazy home. So from her memories growing up in that church, that's a safe place. Years later, she's married to me. I go on staff there for about 7 years. It's an abusive place. And I'll never forget, we were in an argument and she said to me, "You made the only place safe for me unsafe." That was manipulation. She didn't see it that way. And part of me wanted to defend. That means she would have been getting me. And I remember I said to her, no, I'm not going to own that one. No, I'm not going to own that one. But I appreciate you sharing. I wasn't going to own it. Now my more broken, insecure days, that statement would have made me feel guilty, you see, and I would have done what she wanted. But I learned not to I learned to speak up for myself. You see, in order to not be manipulated, the phrase I use now is you must get your voice. You must get your voice. You must have a voice. Speak your truth. Just do it in a loving way. You see? And if you're not sure how to deal with the manipulator, then guess what? Go find a trusted individual, find a mentor, find a coach, find a therapist to help you figure out what to do. All right. And that's why these people, the therapists and counselors, they can be very, very healthy and in their counsel to you. They can give you insights that you wouldn't have. They can tell you what to do in certain situations that you may not know what to do. You see, there's wisdom in a multitude of counselors, an old Jewish proverb, and there's a lot of truth in that. Go get help. Ask. And by the way, if your spouse continues to manipulate you and you tell them to stop and they continue to do it and they do not stop over time, just read the behavior. You go, what do I mean by that? Basically, they're saying by their behavior, you've asked them to stop and they don't do it. What that basically means is they don't respect you. You see, to manipulate another person is to control a person to get what you want. If you manipulate someone to get what you want from them and you don't stop that, then you are disrespecting them. You can explain it away all you want, make all the justifications for it all you want. That's okay. However, reality is you're disrespecting them. And if you continue to disrespect someone and you don't care that you're disrespecting them, you understand you put that person in a position to have to ask some questions now. You create conversations in somebody's head. Well, I've asked you to stop, you don't stop. I've continued to ask you to stop, and you continue to not stop. Wow, you don't respect me. Truth, based on your actions. If they begin to ask these questions in their head, I wonder if I should stay with somebody who doesn't respect me, or why would I stay with somebody who doesn't respect me? I go, those are very fair questions. My great teacher, mentor, Dr. Lori Gordon, as I would travel with her, doing trainings in her work, Lori would say something that in the early days, I didn't like hearing because it suggested divorce. She would say it this way: if you mistreat someone on a regular basis and they walk out of your life, you don't complain about it. You see, if you mistreat someone on a regular basis, you should probably expect them to walk out of your life. Different way she would say that. I never liked it because it suggested divorce. It suggested the relationship would end. And I'm an anti-divorce guy. However, as I matured and thought about what she's saying, you know what I came to realize? That's a fair question. It's a fair question. If you mistreat someone on a regular basis and you don't care, you should probably expect them to walk out of your life at some point. Why would you want someone to stay in a relationship where you constantly send the message, I don't value you? To manipulate someone is a clear indication you don't value them. Why? You're trying to control someone. Respectful people don't devalue people. Disrespectful people devalue people for sure because they're disrespectful. And manipulation is one of their techniques, you see. And so these are some things you can think about when it comes to manipulation in marriage. How do you manipulate? What are your purposes for it? You see, one of the things you can do as we begin to wrap up and close this thing out is, if you're undermining your partner's grasp for reality, or your actions aren't matching your words, or, you are really good at making them feel guilty, you see, or you start claiming that you're the victim and they're not, and that you're just this emotional black hole that you're constantly sucking everybody's emotional energy, getting them to feel bad for you, you see, so you keep sucking them dry emotionally because you do so much negative emotional stuff to drain people. If you're always trying to one up another person, you're trying to one up them. I'm better than you. Well, I did this, but they did this. Yeah, but I did it better. That kind of thing. And if you push people's buttons to get a reaction out of them, if you keep that up on a regular basis, folks, I'm here to tell you, why would you want someone to stay with the manipulator? It doesn't make sense to me. Because love doesn't manipulate. Love doesn't control another person. Love doesn't disrespect. Love doesn't devalue. Love doesn't take from people to benefit the taker. Now, if you live that way in your relationship to your spouse, and then you complain about the lack of relationship, the lack of love, my brain would say to you, what are you complaining about? Why are you bothered by that? Why are you bothered they've stepped away from you or walked out on you or emotionally left you? You don't tend to want to feel love. You don't tend to feel love for people who are a source of pain. You only feel love for people who are a source of pleasure. And you get to choose every single day, every moment, moment by moment. Do you want to be a source of pain or do you want to be a source of pleasure? And whatever you do brings pain or pleasure into your partner's life. I learned that through my mentors, and I've learned that if I want Luelle to feel love from me, then I need to be a person who treats her in a loving way on a regular basis. So I'm looking here, and so Deborah, this is my marriage coercive control. The family court has provided no escape from it, though. Well, thank you, Deborah, for sharing that. By the way, someone just wrote on Facebook here. I wanted to acknowledge it, and so thank you for sharing that, folks. Love doesn't manipulate, but here's what I do know. We talk about with the 4 protectors in us. And the 4 protectors are how you as an individual need to live your life so that whatever you bring to your relationships, particularly your marriage, you're always going to be bringing the good things. And the four ways of living, what I call the 4 protectors, are be a person of goodwill, be a person who's respectful, be a person who has empathy. And in order to do that, you got to be a person who's humble. And humility is a very powerful way to live life. This is Dr. Rick. I hope it's been an encouragement for you. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.